Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. Well, during the spring of 2018, the Irving Parks and Recreation Department began the work of creating a parks master plan called Let's Play Irving. Well, on this edition of Open Line, we'll talk about the status of that project and where we can go from here. Our special guests are Assistant City Manager James Childers and Parks and Recreation Director Joseph Moses. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we are delighted to have you. We've got a lot to talk about, so we'll get right to it. First of all, James, I'll come to you and talk about the master plan, because for those who are not familiar with it, what exactly is it and why did you decide to do it for the Park and Recreation Department?
Well, it's in essence the roadmap for our Parks and Recreation system here in Irving. And the reason why we're doing it, it's been 19 years since we've done one. And so if you think over 20 years you don't have a guiding principle or guiding roadmap for what you do, it can put you in some tight spots. And so this is a tremendous opportunity for Irving. It's an opportunity for us to put a stamp and solidify our Parks and Recreation system, and just ensuring that we have a Parks and Recreation system that's going to last us for generations. We're looking 10, 15, 20 years down the road with this.
Wonderful. And so, Joe, James pretty much kind of explained it for us, but after all these years, why now? Why did you want to do this?
I think it's a critical point for the city to do a master plan. As James indicated, it's been a while since we've had one, and we do have some aging infrastructure, and so the times are coming that we're going to have to address that infrastructure. And then the question is going to be, how do we address that? What do we do with those dollars? Do we go back and do something that reflects what we did in the past, or do we try to address needs that we see coming up in the future? So this exercise gives us an opportunity to vet all the options out there.
Wonderful. Now, James, coming back to you, I have to ask, how does Let's Play Irving help decision makers with this process?
Well, what it does is it leverages just industry expertise. You know, the consultants that we're working with they've done this in numerous cities, have a lot of expertise, and they leverage what they see not only in the region, but the state and the country, even across the world, to get a sense of where the trends are going. But also you take that public input to make sure that we develop something that's very specifically Irving. You know, what you don't want to do is take the flavor, the approach, the different aspects of a different community and try to plop it into this community. So it's like marrying trends, things that they're seeing on the industry standpoint, making sure we're on that front edge, and make sure it's very specific Irving and it meets the needs of the community here.
And what can you add to that, Joe?
I think James is right on point. I mean, it's to bring in half an associates like that. They've seen things all across the country, so they'll have some great input, some great ideas. And then it's just a matter of trying to figure out what best fits our community here for Irving. What's unique about it that makes Irving Irving, and what products that we can put out there for our customers that satisfy their need for recreational services, not only now, but in the future.
I love it. Now, it's easy to say, hey, let's work on a master plan, but we've seen in the past that that's not really an easy task at all. It sounds a lot easier than it is. What does it entail? What do you have to do?
Well, I'll start. Just really what it is that there's that public input component is so critical. It's one thing if we just kind of go off into a dark room and put something together and say, here it is. It's important that you engage the public, and I think we've been very methodical in this process. We put together a visioning committee with specific stakeholders across every spectrum of Irving, different professions, different stakeholder groups, ethnic groups, religious groups. We wanted to make sure that we got a visioning committee that was representative of Irving in its totality. And then from there you leverage other agencies, and then you bring that public input piece, being able to engage the public, have public meetings, allow people to go to the letsplayirving.com website and provide that feedback, and we're still getting it to this day. So we've been very pleased with the amount of feedback that we receive, but it's really critical, because if you don't do that and you roll something out, then people are going to reject it because they feel like I didn't have any input on that. And even though that we do have recommendations, you still might have some folks that say, I didn't get everything I wanted in there. I want to see this or that. But that public engagement piece is just such a critical part of it.
And I know another critical part of it, Joe, is actually doing a review of the current recreation centers. Why was that important?
Well, you know, it's one thing to be satisfied with what we have now. But again, you have to remember we're looking at 20 years down the road. Where are we going to be in the future? We also have to evaluate the age of our facilities. One of the things here in Irving is we've done a really good job of maintaining what we have, but it doesn't turn back the hands of time. A 30, 40-year-old structure is still 30, 40 years old, and you add 20 years to that, and now it's a 50, 70-year-old structure. At some point, you're going to have to replace that, and you're going to have to look at what options are out there. What is the best avenue to utilize those tax dollars? And so it's really critical that we do that.
Yeah, and I want to come back to you, James, because when it comes to the process itself, I have to ask you, what other assessments were critical?
And I touched on it in my introduction. It's looking at other cities that are comparable to us. We didn't just go and take a series of Metroplex cities. I think the only Metroplex city that we do compare ourselves to in this exercise is Plano. But then we look at other cities across the nation that are very similar to us to set that bar, so you have that there. Also, this team brings together a cross-functional group of experts in their particular area. So when we talk about rec centers and aquatics, we have a preeminent person in that field that understands the trends and the needs and can help us with those assessments. Same thing on the park architecture side and things of that nature. So it's when you do this robust analysis, you're not only you're bringing in different expertise to come and help us out, but also you're leveraging other things that we've done in the community, like our comprehensive plan and other strategic documents that we've done over time to make sure that not only we might have a economic development plan, but it might have things that we need to leverage in the Parks Master Plan. So it's a very intensive process of trying to rope in all these different analyses that have been done already, but also bringing some new analysis on top of that. So it's a lot of moving parts with it. It's a big project. It's the reason why it takes 18 months to do. 18 months, if not 2 years. I mean, it's a pretty intensive process.
Sounds like it for sure. And it's not just the experts. I understand you had a lot of public input meetings too. Why was that so critical?
I touched on it before, and it's why it's so critically important. People have to buy in and feel like they've been a part of this process. People are so passionate about their parks, their rec centers, their pools. And that's not just an Irving thing, that's everywhere. People are passionate about their public spaces. And so making sure that we get folks out for them to provide that input. What I've been pleased about is that sometimes you have somebody who has a very narrow set of how they see things, and they say, by golly, you better do this or else. But then once they talk to staff, once they talk to the consultants, you can see that their eyes have kind of been open, and it's like, wow, I didn't think about these concepts there. And a lot of times when folks will bring stuff to our attention that maybe we weren't focused on, so it's just a critical piece of it. And so over the course of the meetings we had about a year ago or so, on top of, I think we got almost 2,000, if I'm not mistaken, just input on surveys on our website. We're getting hits to this day on our website, and we did a meeting on the 23rd, I believe, of May, of where we took the recommendations and started sharing with the public. But it's just critically important. If we just all of a sudden went and put a package together and said, here it is, people are going to be rightfully upset. But what our sincere hope is with this public input process is that people felt like they were able to be a part of this process, provide their input, and feel like we were stakeholders that were at the table with this from start to finish, and they certainly were.
Wonderful. And I have to come to you and ask you another question too, Joe, and that is about the Let's Play Irving, because I understand the website was created as part of this process. And how has it helped you achieve your goals?
You know what, it helped us get the word out. It's an easy tagline to remember. I thought it embraced what our department wants for our community is to have an engagement piece where people can come out and recreate and play. It's something that we plan on continually using moving forward to advertise and promote recreational activities here in the city. But for this process, I think the most important thing is it's an easy name to remember. Let's Play Irving. So it's easily for people to Google it if they're looking for information, to go online and they can search Let's Play Irving, and it'll take you to the website, and they can get information on the master plan and also be able to provide their input on things. They can review what's been developed so far. So that was the main focus of it. We wanted something that was easily remembered by our residents, that gave them the ability to access the plan and to review it and provide their input. We really want to be transparent with this.
Yeah, and it has been. And as the plan's unfolded, I understand it's allowed y'all the opportunity to discover some interesting things like the strength in it all and the opportunities involved. And can you talk about a little bit about that, James?
The strengths and opportunities, I mean, obviously, and I think Joe touched on it immensely, is that because we've kind of been operating without a roadmap for a few years, it's going to give us the opportunity to kind of focus on what we want our Parks and Recreation system to be moving forward. I think just naturally there's just trends that are happening across the region and across the country that we can get up to speed on. I think in particular, we have opportunities to leverage things that weren't even thought of maybe 20 years ago. One of the examples that comes readily to mind is the fact that we have obviously Irving's a very diverse city, and we have a lot of cricket players in the city. And you go and you realize how a cricket pitch is so critically important to a lot of our residents here in the city. And so as you move forward, you figure out how can we leverage those things. In addition to that, people recreate a little bit differently. You know, not everybody wants to go to a traditional, what we call a box in the ground pool. They want to recreate in a different manner. And I think that those are some of the strengths that you get out of this. You start getting a sense of what that next generation is. And just to reiterate one more thing that Joe mentioned is that this plan is setting the table for 20 years down the road. You know, in 20 years, my kids will be grown and my grandkids will be at these parks. And that's something that we all got to remember with this exercise, is that sometimes we want to make these the parks that we remember when we were young, and we're not doing it unless somebody has a time machine or something. We're not going back to, for me, the 80s and go play on a playground. We're trying to build a playground system for the 2020s and the 2030s and things of that nature. So it's really very forward focused, and I think that's where the strength that we're going to get from this is casting that vision forward and making sure that we don't want to build the best park system for 2000. We want to build the best park system for 2020, 2030, and going forward.
Visionaries, I love it. And so would you like to add to that, Joe?
I think what James said was right on point. When you look at our old master plan, which is 20 years out, there's no mention of cricket, there's no mention of esports or any of the things that are trending today. So we missed the point on that. So we want to make sure that we're as close to the target, if not on target, with this plan. What we're doing today is not going to be recreation for the future to come. 20 years from now, we have to be able to project and kind of estimate what do we think is going to be the next trend. We're building today for our future, not for ourselves. You know, our kids are doing things totally outside the box, things that we never thought were possible. Some of the things that when I visit the rec centers and I talk to some of the teens, they talk about they compete online with different games with kids from all across the country. That's recreation for them now. So we need to be looking at trends like that and really just kind of be open to what's coming down the pipe, what the future is going to bring, because we don't want to be in a situation where 20 years from now, people aren't enjoying the recreational services that the city has to provide because we missed the mark.
Good. And James, what would you like to add to that? What would you say are some of the most greatest discoveries from the visionary process?
Well, I think just to talk about what Joe's talking about, just in this day and age, you know, a lot of kids have cell phones, and you think about augmented reality and just looking how do you bring that into the park space where somebody can bring their phone into their recreation elements and things of that nature. Also on top of that, I think just naturally as a public administrator, city management, whatever you want to call it, what you don't want to do is you don't want to be one of those people where people ask, why in the world do we do that? And I think that's the key, and I think that's what the Parks Master Plan allows us to do. People understand what we're trying to build and work towards. Because in my career, I've inherited things where I ask the question, why they do that? That doesn't make any sense. Why they build it right there? And what this does is it puts us in the position to do that, because just candidly, there's sometimes because we've been operating without a master plan for almost 2 decades, there are some things where I kind of scratch my head, why in the world do we do that? Or we missed out on an ample opportunity to do something transformative because we made a short-sighted decision in a particular area. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is why this is such a strategically critical document for us, because we want to make sure that we're working towards a goal, but more importantly that we understand what we're trying to do and the time frame we're trying to do it in. And that's just a valuable component that it brings to the table.
And would you say, Joe, that there were any surprising discoveries?
You know, there were a few things that came out. As we were going through the process and we were reading some of the input and some of the things that people were looking for, there was a lot of requests for soft trails, open space trails out, like nature trails and things like that. That was something that was really surprising to me. We have a great trail system, and I was so focused on camping on trail, but people want more. They want more of those types of outdoor amenities and things like that. So that was a great trend for us to pick up on.
Interesting, very interesting. And James, I want to come back to you. What else can you tell us about the goals and objectives?
The goals and objectives are just really, again, it's just we're looking at this from where do we look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 11 years from now, and going on into the future. And so there might be some elements in the plan that are jarring to people, but one thing we just tell them is that we're not doing that tomorrow. This is something that we're trying to work our way towards. And so, I think that just ultimately the goal is that just for us to be able to cast that vision, have that framework, and more importantly, and this is the brass tacks for a lot of folks, and I know for our city manager in particular, is how do we fund it? How much does it cost, and how do we get there? Because ultimately, it's the greatest investment that you can make in your community. These are going to be the public's tax dollars to go to work to make a lot of these improvements that are out here. And we just want people to understand how that investment is going to take place. And on top of that, how is it leveraged? Because ultimately the investments we make in our parks and recreation system, it has a profound effect on public safety, economic development. It touches so many different areas. If you don't have a vibrant park systems, corporate entities don't want to relocate here. If your kids don't have space, if I can say it, safe spaces to play, then they might be engaging in otherwise activities you don't want them to do so. So it touches so many different areas. And so the goal of this thing is just making sure that we have a tight plan in place that is very transparent. People know the direction that we want to go. But with that being said, also have the flexibility to be able to react to changes in the system. I joke and I use a lot of extreme examples, but maybe in 10 years, we're flying around on jetpacks. We got to be flexible, be able to adjust our parks and recreation system to reflect what's happening in society there. So you want to build a system and a framework, but you also want to have some flexibility to make sure that we can change with the trends, other impacts that we have, whether it be financially or other societal impacts.
Well, speaking of changes, I understand that some of the current facilities are part of this process too, including maybe swimming pools. Can you touch a bit about that?
Yeah, swimming pools. Swimming pools are all, when you start talking about the future of pools, it's always a difficult conversation, and it's that in every community I've ever been in. And I've been in positions in prior stops where I've had to close down pools. Pools are unique, that there's an emotional attachment to them. And there's a lot of people that have provided very strong feedback about, we don't want you to close down this pool or close down that pool. And one of the things that I want the public to understand, we get it. It's not like we're saying that's silly. We understand that emotional attachment to those, but it goes to the heart of something that Joe said a while back. Some of these pools that we have to take a close look at have been open and operating for 50 years, 60 years in some cases. A lot of people don't realize that the lifespan of a pool is around 30 years. And so at a certain point, you're going to have major elements of that pool failing. On top of that, and again, reiterating a topic point that we've been kind of beating the drum on, but it's a reality, is that trends are changing. And a lot of kids, back in the day, it was nothing I wanted to do on a summer day than go jump in that box in the ground, go down that diving board. Nowadays, kids want slides. They want other unique amenities that the traditional in-ground pool doesn't provide. And that's reflected in our numbers right now. We don't have a lot of people using our traditional in-ground pools. All of our usage is at our 2 aquatic centers. And so the one thing I'll say to those that are very adamant about that is that this process doesn't just say, well, we're just going to do away with that and I don't know what to tell you. Part of that process is being strategic and figuring out how do you introduce other aquatic amenities to supplant that. Because I think naturally at the heart, these individuals that are passionate about pools simply want to make sure that we have amenities that their children can enjoy and kids have something constructive and meaningful to do. And so that can manifest through a splash pad. It can manifest through the development of an additional aquatic center strategically in the city to make sure those kids have that experience. And so I know there's a lot of people that have been very passionate about saying, oh my gosh, you can't dare do this. And what we want to say is that there's a dialogue that takes place with that, and it's not going to be arbitrary. It's not going to be here today, gone tomorrow, but we'll have engagement. We'll make sure that we talk to stakeholders as we talk about where we need to transition those things. But that's the challenge that we have as a city. We want to make sure that we're being very mindful of the things that people are passionate about, but also guiding the city in the direction that it needs to go for future generations.
Makes sense. And would you like to add to that, Joe?
No, I think, again, James is right on point. It's a very critical point that we have to look at what we have in our system. We have to evaluate where they are in their lifespan. And when it comes time to replacing things, you have to be strategic with those dollars. Do I buy you old technology, or do I buy you something that's more up to date, more current, that the citizens are asking for? And that's part of this exercise, is what do we do with that? We have to be efficient with the tax dollars that we have. And I think that's a key point that a lot of people are missing. You see a lot of situations where people will make a decision, and as James indicated, people are like, well, why did they go back with that same old thing? Or why didn't they buy something that's more, prepared for what the future has to offer. And that's what we want to look at. You know, there's a certain budgeted amount that comes in for projects, and we want to make sure we're getting the best project that we can get for our citizens.
You're
So
working on it.
we're
Give
working
them
on
time.
it.
Y'all are working on it. So let's go back and talk about Let's Play Irving. What is the current status of that?
Well, just overall with the project and the website is that where we are right now is that we're about to go into what's best described as the adoption process. What that means is that we've taken the draft recommendations. We've taken them. We're taking them to the Parks Board next week. We're going to take them to our council committee on June the 20th, and then I think we're zeroing in on, if I'm not mistaken, September 1st. As a formal adoption process. And what that means is our city council's gone through the recommendation, has formally adopted, and it's now our model moving forward. And so one of the key things that we're still taking in feedback, we're getting it by the day. We're getting calls, our council members are getting called, which is a great thing, but what that shows is that the information is out there and people are reacting to it. And so they're reaching out to their council members, they're reaching out to us as a staff, they're going to letsplayirving.com. I'm going to plug that one more time. You can go to the website and provide feedback. You can see those recommendations. And then ultimately, we're going to tweak moving forward, working with our consultants, but our ultimate goal is by the end of September, by the end of August going into September, have an adopted plan, and then we start talking about what are those next steps that we do with that. Looking at those recommendations, what are those capital projects we want to go and start moving on first.
Well, speaking of projects, I understand, Joe, that there's already some underway, and that includes Center Park. What's going on with the renovations?
You know, the renovations are coming along great at Center Park. They're relocating the weight room to the upstairs room, and then where the former weight room is going to be classrooms. And they're going to do some work on the facade on the inside, on the welcoming area, make it a little bit more open, make it a little more user-friendly for folks when they come in. But again, that's one of the things, that's a heavily used center. It's one of actually I believe it is the oldest center in our inventory. So we had an opportunity to utilize some CDBG funding to bring some amenities up there up to date. I think it's going to be something that the community is really going to embrace and utilize very well.
Looks very nice. We're looking at video while you speak about it. And now I'm going to move on to talking about the Cimarron Family Aquatic Center, because I understand that it recently reopened after some renovations too.
Another great project that we were able to tackle there. We did some renovations to the circulation system out there. We had a couple failures a couple years in a row out there. So we came up with a plan to go out there and replace the old stainless steel circulation channel with a concrete channel. And the team was able to get that done just in time for the opening season this year. It's performing flawlessly out there, and folks are utilizing the pool and having a great time. And you know, the great thing about that project, we were able to get that in and done during the off season, so there was no interruption into services that we provide for our citizens. So it's really a good feather in our cap.
It looks very nice. And we have to mention the beautiful improvements to Millennium Fountain.
That is one that was really close to my heart. I mean, I see it every day outside my window. The fountain is, I think every kid in Irving has a graduation picture or a prom picture in front of that fountain. If you got married here in Irving, you probably took some wedding photos out there. So it's become a staple here. It's something that if you're an Irving resident, you have some type of family photo there. So we wanted to take the opportunity to address some maintenance issues out there. We formerly used to have the pumps. They were located in the ground out there. So we were able to take that vault out of the ground and put a pump house and get that equipment above ground, which made it a lot easier for our staff to access and work on. But we also wanted to add another feature to it. We wanted to add some LED lighting where we can have color lights out there for different holidays. And the response that we've received so far from the public has been outstanding. People are really excited about it. It's starting to pop up again on social media in different places. And those are the types of things that we want to deliver for our residents. You know, again, the lights were something that people didn't realize they wanted until we actually gave it to them. And now they're really happy with what we've done.
It looks fabulous. We were checking out some great video of that while you were talking, and someone just really got great images so people can see it. If they haven't seen it in person, they need to go check it out.
Yes.
Now, I
indeed.
see you over there shaking your head, James. You're like, yes, these renovations are looking fabulous so far.
Oh no, it's impactful, and I've been in Irving for about 18 months now, and I've been able to see, in particular with the fountain, just how it's kind of a staple of the community, and And, you know, sometimes when you see these projects, they're somewhat abstract, but the work that our park staff has done along with our CIP team and putting this together, I think is going to be impactful, and I'm excited to see us using the lights. We got a lot of flexibility lights, so we're going to be able to do some cool things with various holidays and events and things of that nature, so I'm excited to see how that unfolds.
We are too. I mean, all these changes are really helping improve the quality of life for residents here in Irving. And so, Joe, I want to ask you, like, for the future, so far, the Irving Parks and Recreation Department's come up with a lot of different creative ideas, the renovations, the changes that have been made. What can we expect in the future?
You know, we're looking at a lot of things. We're looking at our recreational program offerings. We're looking at how we reach out to our customers, because that has been a big shift in the market. And we want to make sure that we got our finger on the pulse of the community, you know, making sure we're providing programs and services that, you know, that they're looking for, that they want to utilize our facilities with. I think this master plan, again, is a key element for us moving forward in the future. It gives us an opportunity to look at facilities and what we can offer our residents in the future. So that's going to be key to what we were going to be able to provide in the future.
Wonderful. And James, would you like to add to that? You'll have the final word.
All right. Well, I'll just follow up on that. Is that we have an exceptional Parks and Recreation team here in Irving, and I'm not just saying that because I'm over them. I mean, they really are. We have a team that's very passionate about what they do. They care about this community, and they put their best foot forward. And just, I'm excited about what we're doing, not only with this master plan, but just what we're doing operationally and what we're doing under Joe's leadership with the department. And so I'm just excited about seeing how the future holds. And more importantly, I'm just excited as we make improvements and we do these things that are impactful. Nothing warms my heart more to go by a park and just see a team in with people and seeing kids having a great time, or going by a rec center and just knowing that it's full to the gills with folks. Now, it's a blessing and a curse because we need to expand and we need some growth opportunities in some of our facilities. But I've been in situations where nobody was using them, and that's a totally different boat to be in. But it's just a tip to the cap to our Parks and Recreation team, and I just encourage everybody to, again, go out to a park, go out to a rec center, go out to one of our aquatics, use them up. That's what they're there for. But more importantly, as we wrap up this master plan process, I just want to make sure that people make sure that their voice is heard. They go to the website. They can reach out to us as a city staff if they have any direct questions on anything. We just want people to make sure that they are a definite part of this process, and they have that opportunity to provide that feedback.
And that website again is letsplayirving.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, James and Joe, both for being
you.
here.
It's our pleasure.
And thank you all for sharing your information with us and with the community through letsplayirving.com so they can get all the information they need. And we want to thank you also for watching today. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to join us for the next edition of Open Line. That's Thursday, July 11th at 1:30 p.m. We'll see you then.